Welcome to the 10th episode of our podcast of the record. Dashi Madness, the 10th episode. It's like celebrating a birthday, a round of birthdays. Today we will discuss adaptability. We have invited Charlotte Kalt to share her thoughts on what adaptability is and why it's important. Welcome, Charlotte Kalt. Charlotte, what does a general counsel do?
What does a general counsel do? I head up the legal department for Siemens Mobility in Wallisellen. That means I advise the business on all legal matters. Of course, this has a lot to do with sales. How do contracts come in? Do we comment on anything? What are the risks? But also in processing, what happens there? Do we have problems? Is something not working? I'm always called in. But we also have disputes with our landlord. We have problems with employees. So everything that concerns legal matters. And I'm also responsible for compliance. That's also a topic that I deal with.
So we're talking to you today about adaptability. What is your understanding of adaptability?
Of course, that's a super broad term that can probably be defined. See you tomorrow morning and we'll still be sitting here. I think it's really the ability to respond flexibly and effectively to change, to perhaps come up with a creative, different solution, finding something new. I think it's part of being able to react quickly to something. I think adaptability has a lot to do with speed, especially nowadays. It has to do with the ability to somehow find out what's relevant when you're bombarded with information and to make a decision based on this.
Can you be highly adaptable as the general counsel in this role?
Of course you can say that the law is the law. You have to comply with it. That's certainly the case in the area of compliance. I mean, there's very little grey. It's either black or white. There are red lines that we as people, but also we as Siemens, do not want to and must not cross. When it comes to the law, I believe we possess a great deal of adaptability. From a personal standpoint, I consider my job to be highly creative. And I believe that most individuals have the capacity for creativity. Some may find it difficult to comprehend the idea of a lawyer being creative. However, it's true that when we receive a contract from a client, we examine it with a creative mindset, seeking ways to minimize risks, so that we can still do the business. Because at the end of the day, we only earn money as Siemens if we bring in orders. And that includes accepting difficult legal conditions and then responding to them creatively. Which doesn't mean being creative in the sense of doing something that isn't allowed. There is a clear red line at Siemens.
Why is adaptability such an important issue today?
I think the current world has shown us a lot. We had Corona, we have the Ukraine war, we now have the situation with Israel and Iran. I mean, things are constantly changing. I can definitely say that the situation has changed significantly since I started working. Back then, typewriters were still in use, which is quite unimaginable today as none of that exists anymore. Even in the past, you always had to adapt. But I do believe that the speed and the amount of issues we are faced with has increased significantly. We live in this VUCA world, which is a term that everyone always uses. That's just the way it is. We have to change. Digitalization is certainly a huge issue. Especially today with AI, with artificial intelligence. I just think it's getting faster and faster and we have to react to it. And it's also super exciting because we can also react to it.
You just mentioned AI, artificial intelligence. Can we refuse to accept it?
Why should we refuse it? It's really amazing. I think with everything, I mean, there are positive and negative changes. And we all think my positive change is great. I was up on the 4th floor earlier and saw that you have a new coffee machine. That's great. There's new oat milk. Wow, that's great. We're all looking forward to it. Let's assume. Then there are the negative changes. Oh no, EFAS is no longer EFAS. It's now CRONAB, for heaven's sake. Now I can't find it all. It's negative for now. And I think there are phases that we all go through when it comes to negative changes. And the first one is that, no, I don't think so. EFAS is being replaced. No, that can't be the case. Or Corona. No, I don't think so. And the same goes for AI. I remember the first time I read about it, I initially doubted his ability to answer a legal question accurately, but to my surprise, he proved me wrong. It seemed unimaginable, yet he managed to provide a correct response. Its impossibility is now seen as the opposite. No, it's simply not possible. And then comes the next phase, where you realize that your brain, surprisingly it works quite well, where the emotions come into play and protest saying, no, I don't want that, I find it terrible, artificial intelligence could replace my job. How am I supposed to cope with that? It's an incredibly complex situation. I am unable to handle any of that. That's when you have to come to a certain level of acceptance. And then the next phase, I think, is the phase of awakening where you realize, wow, AI, mega cool. It can do so many things. For example, it can translate my voice into French, even though I don't speak French very well. But it can do that. And I think that's what makes it so exciting. And then sooner or later, it becomes a habit. That will be the last phase. I think, especially when we talk about adaptability, it's important that we get into this new phase as quickly as possible and learn and see that AI is super cool. That will take us further.
Of course. Could you please explain the meaning of adaptability and how it applies to our daily tasks and responsibilities?
I thought about that this morning, funnily enough. I remember that I used to know every morning I always knew exactly what I had to do during the day. It was always clear from then to then. I didn't have that many sessions either. Today I feel like I'm only in sessions. The first one usually lasts longer and the second one has already started. And I think it's just super important that we start more. This flexibility and to say, you know what, I'm not even going to think about what I have to do today because it will be different again anyway. That we simply say, I'm not holding on to anything, I accept it. I expect that there will be changes, and when I expect it, I'm no longer so surprised, and then I'm no longer negatively surprised. At the moment, I'm aware that I should currently be engaged in a podcast, creating excitement and preparing myself mentally 15 minutes prior. However, my focus would be better served towards concentration. Unexpectedly, Gerd Scheller contacts me, presenting a complex problem to solve. Then it's part of it. I react to it somehow. I come to terms with it and try to get on with it. I try to find a solution. Yes, I make an effort to continue. I make an effort not to restrain from the adverse, figuratively speaking.
That also reduces stress. You get into these stressful situations very quickly because it's not planned. It's something independent of the complexity, but I have timed it differently, planned it differently. And depending on the situation, that can certainly up quite a bit, absolutely.
And I also think, because you said that about the stress, that's when Gerdard calls and wants something. Or this morning, I don't know, I open the fridge door and I swear last night there were 3 yogurts in there, I swear to God. This morning all 3 were gone. And all parents of teenagers, more likely sons, they know this. Then overnight it disappears. And it's with my yogurt. And I wanted to eat it this morning. And of course you can say, now I'm totally stressed and annoyed, my yogurt is missing. But I can also just say, you know what, I can't change it anyway, I'll just accept it and try to make something positive out of it, so to speak. And then I said to myself, my yogurt is missing, you know what, there's this delicious Italian coffee at the Siemens at the streetcar stop. I go there and then I buy myself a croissant. I bought one of those croissants there. And it tasted like Italy, it tasted like summer vacation. And my mood was super good again. And I think these are small things that we can all learn again and again. To practice adaptability on a small scale and not to hold on to something that's frozen and say, no, that's the way it has to be now, I have to eat this yogurt. It's a stupid example, sorry. But it just happened to me this morning. But to simply say, I'm learning from the little thing. Or I'm sitting in a traffic jam. The train is late, which of course doesn't happen in Switzerland. I'm from Mobility, that doesn't happen. No, but seriously, the streetcar is a better example. So I'm stuck in a traffic jam and I can't change it anyway. And then I'd better make something good out of it. And then I adapt to the situation on a small scale and learn to be more adaptable. I could listen to a podcast, for example.
Let's focus on both the minor hitches and major obstacles. Could you kindly provide us with an example, please? In what situation has your adaptability enabled you to conquer a difficult obstacle?
Earlier, I informed Dashi that the language spoken in our area is High German. Personally, I believe the Swiss possess remarkable adaptability skills as we constantly alternate between Swiss German and High German. This serves as a small example to emphasize the importance of taking a step back when feeling overwhelmed. Reflecting on our achievements in life, acknowledging our ability to adapt, is crucial. Every time we navigate through change, we should remember that we have already accomplished so much. By recognizing our capacity for change, we prevent diminishing our own greatness and instead fuel ourselves with the knowledge that we are capable of achieving so much more. The power to alter and adapt resides within each of us, and through this mindset, a positive and resilient attitude flourishes. And I mean, when we all think back to the Corona period, I mean, that was the adaptability of all of us par excellence. I mean, I remember, funnily enough, I was in Australia on business when this came up, so to speak, and I was there and I thought at first, no, so none of this happens in Europe. The close relationship between China can be like that, but not in Europe. But then it was there anyway. And I mean, we all went into home office at the same time, and Despite the immense challenges we faced, we persevered and overcame them. It was a time of great adversity, with lives lost and many falling ill. However, even amidst this chaos, Siemens maintained a positive mindset and pushed forward. I distinctly recall wondering if the situation was the same in Siemens Switzerland. But at Mobility, Gerd always made video recordings, and I recall an instance where his son, who was around 7 years old and in the 2nd grade, entered the room while his father was being recorded on video. The young boy reached out and tugged at his father's arm. This incident reminded me and caught my attention. So cool, that happens to him too. Because, I was sitting at home, I have 2 kids, they were all pulling at me. At the same time, all these questions come up with force majeure, and I don't even know what force majeure is anymore. I learned that at university. But we've all adapted massively and we've all made it. And I think you can be really proud of that. Sit back, believe we can achieve it now. Moreover, have faith in accomplishing it in the coming times as well. And then we don't have to be afraid of AI, because I do believe that it's an issue, especially AI, or where many people are afraid of it. But I'm convinced that we can do it. We'll get something cool out of it.
You just mentioned Corona and the Corona era. That's a very, very good example of how we can achieve adaptability through this. We have also shown we were literally brought to our knees, and we had to adapt. We had no other choice. That's not so commonplace now. Back then it was so commonplace, thank God. When should we acknowledge the need for adaptation instead of holding on? I find it exceedingly challenging for numerous individuals to be adaptable in this situation of adaptability and to adapt to it.
I think it's difficult, of course, because often, as they say, we've always done it this way, it's always worked this way, why should we change anything? And I think the only way to do that is to keep questioning ourselves and asking ourselves, yes, is that still true? Does it really work? Is it still the best solution? And also by regularly obtaining feedback. How do you approach this task? Should you go to your colleagues and even seek advice from outside the company? Is this still the most effective method to continue, or is there a better alternative? And then you can come to the conclusion, no, that's still good. Or you really realize, no, that's not right. And to be honest, when I hear from myself, we've always done it this way. Wow, then it's already too late. And even if someone suggests it, I refrain from expressing my disagreement in the presence of a larger group. I don't approach the person within the group to say, I'm sorry, but that's unacceptable to me. Uttering those words signifies that the moment has truly passed. However, you do eventually find yourself in a tranquil moment and decide to approach someone. Think about it. That left such and such an impression on me. Wouldn't it perhaps be worth considering doing it differently? What else could we then have ideas? And then perhaps put yourself in the other person's shoes. How does it look from your perspective? Yes, we've always done it this way, but the world around us has changed.
How can we as a company contribute to this and to become even more adaptable?
So I think we certainly don't have a choice. We have to be adaptable, because otherwise at some point the world will have moved on and then we won't be here anymore. I think our history has also shown that we can do that. I also think that Siemens offers so many opportunities and also promotes this and really says that we should be, are allowed to be, that we also get empowerment and are allowed to try things out. I looked at this Hello page yesterday and saw 0 learning hours. What on earth? And then I thought, yeah, cool. I can do it again without having a guilty conscience. Oh, I already have so many learning hours. Maybe I should take a break. I think Siemens gives us so many opportunities, and I believe that if everyone for themselves, every team for themselves, just keeps at it and tries to do their best and tries to think out of the box, then that's great then.
We can do that. How can we achieve this as a team? Perhaps from the perspective of a manager. How can I, as a manager, encourage and back the team and promote adaptability among my employees?
I am not certain if the leadership circle is still operational or not, but I am presently involved in one, and our most recent gathering recently took place. And then we also discussed the topic of adaptability, although that was a coincidence. And someone then said, I think the complexity is so high today, and it simply overwhelms many people, many employees, team members. And I think it's also the manager's job to take complexity out of the equation. Not all of us have to, and I hope Mario first doesn't rip my head off, but not all of us have to understand exactly how the accelerator works. It's enough if I know I can go to Mario and he can explain it to me or he can explain it to my customer. So, as a manager, you really have to consciously say, you don't have to read it all. Or that you say to the team, I don't know. Then I get another email and there are 10 new circulars from Siemens on it. And then I think, for heaven's sake, and I know my employees are getting the same email. And then they say, you know what? It's your turn this week or month where you have to go through these circulars. Unfortunately, about 9 of them are irrelevant, but luckily there are other 9 that I don't have to read either. This is why we have a system where someone summarizes the one newsletter that is actually relevant to me or our department and then passes on the information. This collaborative effort of supporting each other and the team is important, and I want to emphasize this to my employees as well. We should also acknowledge that line managers often feel overwhelmed. We struggle just as much as managers when it comes to dealing with numerous changes. It's impossible for me to do everything on my own, but remember, that's okay. Put yourself in my shoes and imagine that all of this may be overwhelming for me right now. Charlotte may not fully understand the extent of the situation, but let's gather the team's opinions and encourage them to tackle this together. It's time to take action. Support and help each other.
I also believe it's not a unilateral narrative. Absolutely. When I also comprehend, for instance, that my manager is present and in a difficult situation, there is an issue at hand as well. Both our team and our colleagues have a mutual understanding, strengthening our unity with each other. But we can also support each other in both directions. I think that's also very, very strong and very important.
Charlotte, we frequently inquire about our guests' extraordinary abilities and powers.
Since I'm aware this question is frequently asked by you, I'm not unintelligent. Last night we had a dinner with several colleagues, thus I figured it would be fitting to inquire about their perception of their own superpowers. Funnily enough, everyone said something different, so I thought, that doesn't help me either. When I ask my children, they say you can tell from the tip of my nose whether I'm lying. Yes, I have this superpower, but I really believe that my superpower is that I'm very pragmatic, that I'm really capable of to just let things be 5 square sometimes, to have my 80 or 20 solutions. Not everything can always be perfect. You really have to make sure that you don't overtax yourself and make a genuine effort to discover a practical resolution, without having turned every last bit of it upside down. Of course, there are limits, there are safety issues, etc. That's clear, but in everyday life, I think it's a great superpower, and I'm very glad that I have it.
What advice would you like to share with the audience in attendance?
I'm a super curious person myself. I always need to know everything, and I think curiosity helps a lot because then you're interested, you automatically ask questions. You automatically ask, what do you mean by that? Can you explain it to me again? That basic curiosity that we all probably had as children, that you don't lose it, but that you really keep at it and always want to know, want to find out more, and really want to learn more. I strongly believe in conveying the idea that developing adaptability is indeed feasible, offering considerable training possibilities. But you shouldn't train it on the big ones. You shouldn't wish for Corona again. I don't think any of us want that, but you should train the little ones. Some yogurt is missing, and then really try. Now I take these negative feelings, I switch them off and say no, pause. Stop. Yogurt is gone. I'll go on and I'll do something great with it. I'll make something good out of it. I've learned something new now.
As we all know, the best is saved for last. Because today we've saved our favorite part of the podcast for last, because we said at the beginning that this is our 10th episode and we want to celebrate. And now we come to the part, the drink. What have you brought us today?
I was informed to bring a beer, but truthfully I don't enjoy it. So I had the idea of being adaptable and decided to bring a ginger beer instead. It might have the word beer on the label, but honestly it has nothing to do with actual beer. It is basically a variety of lemonade that possesses a distinctively bold and tangy taste. On a personal note, I am quite a fan of it, and it's a pleasure to say that nowadays it can be easily found everywhere. I have brought some for both of us in hopes that you too will relish it.
Very good. That's not a problem for us at all, because Dashi and I are very adaptable. If there's no beer, we also drink gin or ginger beer. Therefore, very good. Let's have a toast then.
Nice and spicy, isn't it?
We have a surprise for you, for us in this circle. I've brought us something to celebrate the 10th episode, as it should be for a birthday. And that's what we're doing now. We'll talk a bit more. Anyway, it was very, very nice to have you with us today. A great conversation with you. Thank you very much for the personality you've shared with us here, and what you think, feel, and mean. And that was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me here.
So, what's coming up in the next episode before we get to the cake?
In the next episode, we'll be talking to Barbara Buckley about experimentation. We'd be delighted if you listened again. See you then.
See you then. Bye together.